Hey guys, Bird Yugioh here, coming at you with another video. This time I wanted to do a little discussion video on like top 10 rogue slash budget decks for this format. Some of these are meta decks that are just made more budget, and I have some profiles on my channel already for some of these, and some of them I will be posting here in the coming up soon. So yeah, coming up at number 10, I actually have two decks, two ritual decks, Necros and Herald of Perfection. I put them at number 10 because they're not the best, rogues slash budget decks, but they do a lot of things very well. And honestly, any of these decks in the top 10, I would be very comfortable taking to locals, heck, even some of them to like a regional, because they do a lot of things well, and they, are for the most part cheap decks. They should be able to pick up pretty easily. But like Necros, a lot of searching, and depending on what you play, like the Vanity's Ruler or my version, which was like the Gale Dogra, Archlord Christia version, those are just going to stop special summoning. You can do a lot of different versions of Necros. And then Herald of Perfection is just a deck that puts out Herald of Perfection. You got hopefully like 5 fairies in hand, and you just have literally just 5 negates. You just negate everything your opponent does. So both really fun decks. Decks that are, I'd say, more on the rogue side than the budget side, but they are, definitely budget friendly as well. You're not going to see very many of these at, if you go to a locals, you'll probably be the only one playing these decks. So that's number 10. Number 9, I'm going to put Cosmo at number 9. There's a lot of different versions you can play of this deck. You can play a more control, trap heavy version that uses Tin Can a lot. You could play a more, OTK variant. I believe I have that version on my channel already. So I'll be doing like kind of a more control-based version as well. With very budget friendly, since it got the release in Premium Gold 3. But it like, Dark Destroyer is amazing. It's off the ban list, so you play it at 3. It just enables so many OTKs. Your opponent, it can't be targeted by your opponent's card effects. A lot of high attack. Really, really good deck. In general, just does a lot of things well. It's a cheap deck, and you're not going to see very many out there. So that's number 9. Number 8, I'm putting my budget version of Cyber Dragon here. The budget version that I'm going to be posting is going to be more of like, definitely more of a budget kind of OTK, going back to like the Cyber Dragon roots when it was first released, like in the Cyber Dragon structure deck, all those new cards that were released, like Cyber Dragon Core, and like Cyber Dragon Nova was released there as well. But Cyber Dragon, like I said, it now is very combo heavy with like hers and Seeger and all kinds of cool cards that are out. And definitely with the reprint of hers and Seeger, it's more of a budget friendly deck. You can, and then Cyber Emergency, in my version, I obviously don't play it. There's ways around it. You don't always have to play it. It's not a necessity, I don't think. Obviously it is if you're going to be playing at like the regional level, but if you're just playing for fun, kind of just a budget deck, Cyber Dragons can still steal a lot of games. It's still a really, really cool, fun deck. That's why it's at number 8. Number 7, one of my favorites, ABC. It's, without the nightmares and other cards like that, and like Ancient Fairy Dragon, that's when I felt the deck was at its best, when it had Ancient Fairy Dragon. But it's still super, super good now. A lot of power, especially if you can get ABC Dragon Buster or a couple of them. It's a really good deck. You can play hand traps in it pretty easily. You can play a lot of good, regular traps in it as well to make it more control. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this deck, and it's really fun. That's why number 7 is ABCs. Number 6 is a deck that never dies, Burning Abyss. Such a good control deck if you want to make it that way. Such a good, going second kind of OTK deck. I always, with my Burning Abyss decks, lean more towards kind of the control. Heck, even like PK Fire versions that are using like the Phantom Knights. But any way you play it, Burning Abyss is always going to be something you can take to locals and always potentially top with it. There's a lot of you can play a lot of hand traps in the deck. You could play traps, disruption traps and stuff like that. And Dante's always good. And now with the new Link, Cherubini, it's a little pricey, but I believe it's like $10 to $12 now. Now's the time to get it. And I really feel like you only need to play one. But Burning Abyss is a really good deck. Just recurring, it's just consistent and a really fun deck at that. Number 6 is Burning Abyss. Number 5 is probably the deck I've taken to locals more than any other deck. Dinos. I tend to lean more towards the Lost World Dinos. I kind of like control decks, more than like super combo heavy decks. But yeah, the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno is just a beast. Wins you games if you get him on board most of the time. Soul Eating Oviraptor is kind of the pricey one right now. But if you just buy 3 of the structure decks, you can have a pretty good deck. And with Miscellaneous Swords out there, it's a really, really good deck. You can play the Kaijus in it. You can play a lot of hand traps. It's just a super, super good, probably one of the best going second decks out there right now that can actually compete. Just really, really good one. Number 5 is Lost World Dinos. Number 4 is going to be Heroes. More particularly for what I'm going to be doing when I give you guys my deck profile is like the Dark Warrior Masked Heroes. I've always kind of leaned towards more, the Masked Heroes. The new Vision Heroes are very good, but they're also extremely pricey now. You're looking like $8 a piece for a playset of like Ferris, and then $8 for all the other cards that you need for it as well. And with Stratos now officially off the ban list, it doesn't mean this deck is all of a sudden the greatest deck out there, because Stratos is still kind of slow. I mean, it adds you a hero from your deck to your hand, which is good, but there's a lot of cards that do that nowadays. Heck, in the Dino deck, you got Soul Eating Oviraptor, which can send a card to the graveyard or add to hand, which is better than Stratos right there. But Masked Heroes are very good. If you can get out Dark Law and have some back row, or Dark Law and have a couple other monsters on board that do some other stuff for you. It's a really good deck, really powerful deck. That's why I have it at number 4, Elemental Hero. Number 3, Salomon Great. I posted, I believe, maybe a few weeks ago, my budget version of Salomon Great, which Salomon Greats are so good, even with only just one Gazelle. It's easy to get to Gazelle, and it's easy to just spam the board with just a couple cards that you have in hand, and then you're left with a couple back row plus hand traps. You can just play everything in the deck. I always suggest playing a lot of hand traps and a lot of just regular traps. You can go first or second with it. It's just a really, really consistent deck, really good at what it does, which is why I put it at number 3. Salomon Great. Number 2, really any Pendulum version. I'm doing like the Endymion is actually really powerful right now. You can play stuff like spell books in it for some draw power. You could play like a Zephyra Endymion build, but overall, Pendulums in general, Pendulum Magicians even, really, really powerful. If I went to like a locals, heck, even this coming weekend, this is probably one of the decks I would bring and potentially even play, would be some version of Pendulum, because they are just so powerful now. Even losing Guard Dragon Agripane, the deck still can go into, obviously LP and special summon out a Destrudo, link that away, and then use it again from grave. There's just a lot of things you can do with Pendulums, and put up a ton of negates with it. Just a really cool deck. Number 2 is Endymion. Now number 1, the number 1 budget rogue deck. I don't know if you guessed it, but in my opinion, it's got to be Altergeist. You can disagree with me all you want. It actually was hard for me to pick between these 3. I just put Altergeist as number 1. It's one of the more recent decks I've been working on, and I just feel even with just one multi-faker, the deck almost really only needs one multi-faker, because with cards like Meloseek, you're going to be searching it out, and then once you get it out on the board, you're going to be getting your Siliquidus, and then Siliquidus is going to bounce it back to hand, so you can then use it again. So recycling one and using one is most of the time what you want to do anyway. But Altergeist, very trap heavy, but the traps they play are so dang good. You can play hand traps in it. It's just a very underrated rogue, and now it's a very underrated budget deck as well. I just picked up all the cards recently, and they're all super cheap. They were all reprinted in the most recent Mega Pack. Multi-Faker looks great with its prismatic rarity. But yeah, the actual Altergeist traps are great. The links are great. It's a super fun deck. I put it at number 1. You guys can disagree all you want. That's fine. But yeah, that's my top 10. Actually, top 11 if you count the 2 decks I showed at the beginning. But yeah, go ahead and tell me down in the comments what you guys think are some decks I missed. I'm sure I missed a bunch. There's so many good budget and rogue decks. That's basically all I specialize in on this channel. And I've got, heck, a list of like 50 decks that I could potentially do. So yeah, let me know what you think might be, what's your top 5 or top 10, what you think should be down there, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.